Hey, what's going on, ladies and gents? Joe G at Elite Health and Physique, and today I have the good, the bad, the ugly, and most importantly, the truth about fasting. What it is, how it works, how you can use it, and how I use it. All this just for you in the very first episode of If You Want to Know, Ask Trainer Joe. Before we get right to it, if you're new here, pause, Jaws. Don't forget to subscribe to help grow the elite movement. If you don't know, we're about helping people take control of their health and build a quality physique. So if you heard the buzz about fasting, or maybe you dabbled in it a little bit with weak results, listen up, because I'm about to break it down and lay it out just for you. And at the end of the video, I'll show you how I use it personally. All right, so the question I received on my IG, and I'm gonna put it on the screen so you can see it, was fasting, yes or no, and why? All right, so let's talk about what fasting is. So fasting has been around for ages and centuries. It's mainly practiced by religious cultures and then some ethnic cultures as well. So, but essentially it means is you're literally taking a break from eating. And if you were fortunate enough to be disadvantaged in life, you may have been forced to fast. And I know I've had plenty of nights where I ate sleep for dinner. And I can even remember a stretch when I was a kid and I would eat mayonnaise and jelly sandwiches. And I got so used to the taste that I thought it was normal. It wasn't until I went to my babysitter's house and she said, hey, what do you guys want to eat for lunch? And I'm like, ooh, I want a mayonnaise and jelly sandwich. And she looked at me like, no, we're not gonna have a mayonnaise and jelly sandwich. We're gonna have something better. And so at that point is when I realized, damn, it's probably not the norm. This is not trending right now. And obviously at the time it wasn't pleasant, but it taught me a valuable lesson, especially in a society where overeating is the norm. And that is, if I don't eat a meal or two, I'm not gonna die, right? I'm not gonna die. So comment down below and let me know if you've been there or worse, because I'd love to hear about the struggle, because it's not always about all the highlights in life that you see on social media. So I wanna hear about the struggle. Comment down below if you've been there and let's share some good time. Let's talk about the common types of fasting. So there are many types and forms of fasting, but we're just gonna cover the main two forms that everybody uses today, or what seems to be used today. And that's one, intermittent fasting, and then two, alternate day fasting. So intermittent fasting is where you literally take a break from eating 16 hours of the day, and then you get all your food in within a small 8-hour window. Alternate day fasting is where you would say, let's use a nice round number, 2,000 calories. So alternate day fasting would be 2 days during the week, you would eat about 500 calories. And then the other 5 days of the week, you would eat your 2,000 calories, and then you would still have that total deficit. So now I want to talk about how fasting works. But in saying that, you need to understand the main energy sources that your body uses. So the first and the primary energy source is sugar or glucose, right? So your body wants to use that up first. It's more readily available and can easily push it into the tissues and the organs. But secondly, if there's not enough glucose, then your body's gonna switch over to using fat or fatty acids. And the main purpose or the main organs that use up the fatty acids would be your muscles, your liver, and most importantly, your brain, okay? So if you understand that, sugar, fat, those are the two main energy sources your body wants to use. Sugar being the primary, most preferential source of energy that your body wants to use. So in saying that, there's a theory called the fed-fast cycle. And there are 4 stages. So we're gonna break this down right now so you can get a better understanding of how this works. So in the fed cycle, right? That's from 0 to 3 hours after you've consumed food, right? Anything you hit your mouth, that now this cycle begins. After you eat, you'll find that your blood sugar is high, right? Because you've eaten something, and now and then your insulin, which is one of the hormones produced by your body, wants to push the sugar. So the sugar is just floating through the bloodstream, and the insulin's job is to come out and push that sugar into the cells so you can use it for energy. Also during this time, your body is not burning fat. So once you eat sugar, right, your body can no longer burn fat, because it's using the sugar as energy and it's not using the fat. So anything that you eat within this time frame that's over the calories that you're supposed to have is gonna be stored as fat. You're not gonna burn that. So that's why this is important. And if you do exceed those calories, you might get that feeling that some people call the itis. Oh man. So that's essentially what you're feeling, 0 to 3 hours in that fed state. If you eat too much, you might get the itis, all right? So now you know how that works. So the next state is the post-absorption state. This state is obviously after you've eaten the calories and your body's used up all those nutrients. And this happens about at 18 hours after you've eaten. Your body will start to break down glycogen. What glycogen is it's all the stored sugar, usually within your muscles and your liver. your body will slowly start breaking some of this glycogen down and pushing it into the bloodstream so that your insulin can push it into your cells and you can have a little bit more energy. And also at this time, your body will start mobilizing fat. So it'll start using the stored fat that you have in combination with the sugar to create a little more energy for your body and those organs that we talked about. So now you're in the third state, you're in the zone. We're talking about 36 to 48 hours of not eating. So at this point, your insulin is super sensitive to sugar because essentially it hasn't been called upon to do its job, right? So think about it like this. You're a good worker, you know your shit, you're good at your job, right? Suddenly out of nowhere, your boss stops calling upon you to do your job. How would you feel? You might feel a little sensitive, right? So it's the same thing that's going on with the insulin because you haven't called upon your body, right, to release the hormone insulin because you're not eating sugar. So now your body has to create energy. So now your body goes ahead and digs into the stored sugar, the glycogen in your muscles, your liver, and other tissues, and it slowly starts to break this down to create sugar in the bloodstream so that way it can get energy. But the good part about this is now your body is shifting, right? It's shifting from using sugar as a primary source to going ahead and switching over to fat, the fatty acids, and using that as a primary source of energy. Now you're getting those benefits, but at the same time, you start to feel really tired and drained because your body is looking for sugar. And now we're gonna talk about the fourth and final stage, which is the starvation stage. And that's pretty much 48 hours plus of doing fasting. So at this point, everything that we talked about before in the previous 3 stages just gets heightened, it just gets more magnified. So your body will start really breaking down the tissue. It'll start breaking into your muscle tissue, breaking into your organs, and just in order to create some energy. So, and you're also feeling super tired and you're dragging by this point. So many people don't take it this far, and you really don't want to stay in this state for a very long time, but it's good to know and understand if you do have to, what to expect. So why is this potentially beneficial for you, right? How do you benefit from this? So your body has this process where it sends out these macrophages, and the job of these macrophages is to go in, clean up all these dead cells and recycle all your nutrients. But your body has these nutrient signals that let these macrophages know it's time to do some cleaning, right? And this process is called autophagy. And this process is obviously important because it helps maintain the function of your cells. Now, here's the key factor in this whole process. This process doesn't function well if you're insulin resistant or in the case of type 2 diabetes. So if you think back to the example of being insulin sensitive and you're your boss and you're good in your job, but you're not being utilized, being insulin resistant is the opposite. So you're being overworked. And when you're overworked, do you have time to clean the house? Probably not. But this process of autophagy is essential for your body to fight against oxidative stress. And so I'm sure you heard the terms antioxidant and why it's important to eat those foods, and this is partly why. And secondly, why it's beneficial to you is because it can reduce inflammation. So inflammation is closely tied to the autophagy process because oxidative stress is closely tied to inflammation. So if you see if autophagy is working and then oxidative stress is down, therefore your inflammation will be down as well. However, it's not widely studied in humans, but they did do a study where they had about 10 obese people, right? So you're overweight, and people who also studied from asthma, which is inflammation of your airway. So they did, these people did a study where they're doing alternate day fasting, and by the end of the study, their body weight was down, so they lost fat, and also their peak expiratory flow, which is a test that they use in asthma, along with some other symptoms and questionnaires to see how you're feeling to determine how well or how controlled your asthma is. So they did a study, alternate day fasting, help with asthma, decrease the inflammation in your airway, and 2, they lost a little weight. So that's another reason that this can be beneficial to you because it can decrease your inflammation. So the third reason why it's beneficial to you is your insulin. So people who do alternate day fasting or intermittent fasting, studies have shown that their fasting insulin levels show a steady and a stable decline, right? And so, but the studies show that their blood sugars haven't shown that same decline, so it's about the same. However, here's the kicker. If you're talking about fat loss, if you're keeping your insulin down, you think about those 4 stages we talk about, the fed-fast cycle. If you're keeping your insulin down, then you're burning fat because you're mobilizing fat, right, to create energy. So that's another reason why fasting, alternate day or intermittent fasting can be beneficial for you. And the fourth benefit is anti-aging effects. So they've done studies in animals that haven't well documented in humans, so take it with a grain of salt, however you may. However, the evidence did show over the study that there was a reduction in oxidative stress, and simply put, all oxidative stress is your body's fight to balance out the reactive oxygen by using antioxidants. So there's a nice homeostatic, even environment. And so the fifth and last benefit, and it's quite simple, is a reduction in total calories. So because we love our salt, sugar, and all those delicious extra calories, if you are fasting and you're using intermittent fasting or alternate day fasting the right way, you should have a drop in overall calories, which would create a deficit, and you should see some results. So now let's get into why you may not want to fast, or why you shouldn't fast. First and foremost, I'd like to say you have to know yourself. You have to know what type of person you are and what type of diet that will sustain you. So it's all about finding the best diet for you. So if you're prone to binge episodes of eating, right? Sometimes you just get in the zone where you're just eating a bunch of food. Intermittent fasting may not be for you. Here's why. Anytime you have long episodes of fasting, the tendency is to come off of that and eat a large amount of unhealthy foods, which then leads to rapid weight regain. And then there's a mental block where you're like, damn, you let yourself down and you're upset and then you're discouraged about it. So if you're that type of person, this type of diet may not be for you, but that's okay. You gotta keep looking. Here's why I say that, because plenty of people tell me, oh, I'm trying fasting, I'm doing this. And in the past, I would try to warn them. I'd be like, oh, listen, here's what's gonna happen, da 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 da. Right? But I've learned my lesson. I stopped wanting to be the bad guy. So now I just listen, absorb it, take it all in, and then I follow up and I ask some questions. Hey, how'd the fast go? Oh man, I gained X amount of pounds like 4 days after. Hey, how'd the fast go? Oh man, that was terrible. I'm back at square one. And I'm no different. I do the same thing from time to time too. However, I found a way to make intermittent fasting work for me and to weave it into my life seamlessly. And I'm gonna share that with you. So I typically fast for one of two reasons, right? So the first reason is, let's say I'm starting my diet, and usually when I start a diet, I know I'll have to diet, but sometimes I'm just not in the right mind frame to set up my macros and to get going. And that's why I'll incorporate intermittent fasting into the first week or two of my diet to get my mindset ready and to crush my cravings at the beginning of my diet. And then I'll get back into my macro regimen and I'll take that all the way through the rest of my diet. Obviously, I'll have to make tweaks and bust up plateaus when they show up. But mainly, I'm getting into my macro regimen, but intermittent fasting will help me get into that mindset and set up my diet. The second reason that I use intermittent fasting is, let's just say I plan to go out to a social event, or I have something planned for a special occasion and I want to enjoy myself with zero restrictions without counting any calories and have all the delicious carbs that my sweet little heart desires, right? So depending on how I look after that, because sometimes, if you're dieting, then after you have all those carbs and you have all those nutrients, then your muscles and your glycogen levels are really full. So your muscles are full and they look hard and you look good. Other times, if you're not dieting, you can look soft and sloppy. And those would be the times where I would implement intermittent fasting or alternate day fasting, for 2 to 3 days, maybe 4 days, into the next week after I come off a weekend like that, just to help me get back into the swing of things. And I'm right back on my macro patterning and my regular way of eating. So I hope after watching this video, you have a better grasp on intermittent fasting. And don't forget to do your part to help this elite movement grow by subscribing right here at the end of the video to the channel. Got plenty more good things coming for y'all. I know I've been slacking on this content, but it's a priority. So please keep the questions coming. I'm gonna keep answering them. Until then, the juice is worth the squeeze. See y'all on the other side.